What's good, y'all? It's your boy Ross back at it again with another video. So we're gonna check out BMW Turbo Inline-6 engines are ridiculous. Now, if you know anything about cars, you know BMW, they make some high-powered vehicle, especially stock, and a lot of times these engines are inline-6s, and they're making great power, great horsepower, and great torque. And if you're really trying to get like the most performance out your car, it doesn't even take that much. Just an email and a downpipe, and now you could be making upwards to over 600 horsepower, 700 horsepower on an inline-6 engine. And a lot of times, anytime I've ever had some interactions with BMWs, a lot of times I lose. I mean, they're just faster vehicles. They're made to be much more faster than, some of the other competitors out there. I have to really do some modification just to be able to really keep up with some of these BMWs out here. So we're going to check this out. Appreciate all the love and support y'all shown on the channel, man. We're going to show some love to the BMW owners out there, man. I'd love to see
BMW Turbo Inline-6s. Engines like the N54, N55, S55, B58, and S58 have given BMW the reputation of the king of modern inline-6s. Yeah. Engines that are very robust in factory form that with bolt-ons and tuning can make almost double the factory horsepower rating. Now, to better understand the German 2JZ, we have to go back to where it started.
Damn!
In 2006, BMW produced their first mass-produced turbo inline-6 called the N54. This was an engine offered in the 335i initially and then proliferated throughout BMW's lineup by 2008. This was an all-aluminum 3-liter dual-overhead cam inline-6 with two TDO3-10T turbochargers, making 8 psi boost for an overall output of 302 brake horsepower, and later produced up to 335. These engines featured direct injection and VVT or vanos on the intake and exhaust camshaft. Even though these engines were outclassed by the M3's S65 4-liter V8, the aftermarket soon proved these were the engines you needed to have.
Crazy.
N54s come for the factory with forged crankshafts and a forged rod and cast piston combo. Charge pipes, downpipes, larger intercooler, and a tune is enough to outrun E92 M3s, which are double the price. What holds the N54 back specifically, it is tiny twin turbos. They tap out at around 500 to the wheel. If converted to a quality single turbo kit, then you will hit the limits of the fuel system, and then next the rotating assembly at around 700 to the wheels.
Look at that. And that's a good run.
Around 2010, you saw the introduction of the N55. This was a more refined version of the N54, giving better factory emissions, a single turbocharger instead of twins, and the introduction of variable valve lift known as Valvetronic. When comparing the N54 to the N55, you immediately notice the intake cam duration on the N55 is much higher, and combined with the higher lift cam, the cylinder head flows better than the N54. But that's not the full story. The N55 is a cast crank rod and piston, rather than the N54 is a forged crank rod and then a cast piston. Where the N54 still has the advantages in the power potential, since the twin turbos can supply more air at higher horsepower, maxing at right around 500 to the wheels, while the N55 taps out at around the 420 horsepower mark. In factory trim, the N54 and N55 run the same factory boost level of 8 psi, but when higher boost levels are commanded in bolt-on and tune combinations, the N55 runs out of steam. The N55 is better in factory trim, but when people want more power, they're going to be well suited with an N54. Now, how do you improve on greatness? You turn up the boost.
Uh-oh.
In 2014, BMW introduced the S55, which was the first time a turbo inline-6 was put inside of an M car. The S55 kept the same 3-liter displacement of the M55, but ditched the single Borg-Warner B03 for twin MHI turbochargers, giving it 425 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. It also introduced air-to-water intercooling, which kept the intake piping short and reduced lag and is much more efficient at cooling the air charge. In comparison to the prior N54 and M55, the S55 was a closed deck block, which added rigidity near the combustion chamber since it runs a higher factory boost of 18 psi versus the 8 psi on the N55. The S55 was equipped with a lightweight forged crankshaft and rods, Molle lightweight forged pistons. Also, the S55 has identical camshaft duration and lift as the M55, almost as if the cylinder head was a direct transplant. Only downside is the S55 is M specific, so don't expect any cheap M2, M3, or M4s to go have fun with. The engine comes at a cost.
Look at that, bro. Look at that, bro. Look at that. And I've seen this in person. Bruh. Telling you, man. Whoo, them BMWs, bro. Some slight modifications, you're gonna be beating a lot of people on the road, bro. Cars that are obviously, you know, has probably way more horsepower than you and stuff, you're still gonna be beating them on the road, bro. I've seen it in real time. Shit crazy. Shit is insane how much power BMWs are pushing out in their vehicles with not even crazy sauce. You know, like just something simple. Like I said, downpipe, you know what I'm saying, in a email sometimes, and you're making really good horsepower. You don't even really have to go too crazy. You don't even have to break the bank as much. So it's just really insane.
Now, the M cars aren't the only ones having fun. The S55 played a part in developing the successor to the N55, which we know as the B58.
Yep.
The B58 is a slightly larger in displacement, but still 3 liters overall. Big differences between the N55 and the B58 is that the B58 has a forged crank, forged rods, and cast piston. The engine block on the B58 is a closed deck block, and it's shared with the diesel B57 and runs higher compression at 11:1. There isn't any publicized factory turbo specs, but the B58 has pushed into the 500 wheel horsepower range on the factory single twin scroll turbo, outworking the N55 by a large margin. The B58 also has air-to-water intercooling versus the N55's air-to-air. The B58 also has a technical update, which included a better high-pressure fuel pump, which is a common upgrade with downpipes and drop-in turbos and tuning. The aftermarket has shown the B58 to be one of the easiest engines to get to 500 to 600 wheel horsepower, and being reliable as hell at those power levels.
Yep. And Supers as well.
Now, in typical BMW fashion, they add another turbo and create a beast. In 2019, BMW released the S58. This had its start in the X3 and X4M and then into the G8X, M3, and M4. It was an evolution of the B58, but meant to replace the S55 in the M cars. In comparison, the S55 and S58 are both twin turbocharged, while the S58 uses a twin intake ram with a larger air-to-water intercooler system. The S58 camshafts have much more duration on the intake cam, leading to a better flowing cylinder head while retaining the same valve lift. A key factor of the S58 is the compression is lowered to 9.3 to 1, since it runs 24 psi of boost from the factory in competition spec versus the S55's 18 psi.
0 to 60 in 2.65 is really fucking good, bro. That's really fucking good, bro. That's crazy. And like I said, they probably didn't even have to do too much. Euroclass, downpipes, burger tuning, JB4. But they probably didn't have to do too much. That's the funny thing about BMW and their recent models and the engines, bro. Like, they don't stock. They're doing really good numbers. That's the crazy thing about it. It's just one of those things where it's really truly amazing the leap in technology and the amount of power you can get out of these cars that you can essentially daily. These are not cars that you can't daily. You know, I think a lot of people have kind of, their stance has kind of changed on BMW, because the general consensus for a while was BMWs, they break down a lot faster. The maintenance is a hell, can be nightmarish. But I feel like recently I haven't heard too many complaints about that in regards to BMWs and their engines. And these are coming from people I personally know that have had it tuned, had it modified. And for the most part, you know, they've been able to, you know, keep their engines running and daily it, even with that type of power upgrades and stuff, and haven't really had too many issues. So it's the fact that BMW have, you know, kind of launched themselves essentially as the premier brand. If you want a fast vehicle that still looks nice, for the most part, you go with BMW because you're gonna get something fast from the lot factory, and then after that, whatever you do to it, you can just have a ball. Look at that. Look at that. That's crazy.
The S58 shaved 2 kilograms from the already lightweight crankshaft, getting it exceptional throttle response. The engine is relatively new, but the aftermarket has already pushed it into the 4-digit horsepower club, and it makes 200 wheel horsepower over stock just with bolt-ons. The amount of margin that's
just ridiculous. That's ridiculous, bro.
You can make extra power on in these engines are absolutely insane. And yes, they come at a cost because it's an M specific engine.
Yeah.
But there's no denying that the S58 right now is literally the king of inline sixes. Now, I know a lot of people have been waiting for this reliability. Now, when it comes to the older cars like the M54 and the M55s, you have to remember and put this into context. These are aged BMW products. They're 15 years old, 10 to 15 years old. So you're gonna have 10 to 15-year-old problems like the electric water pumps will go out, or like, for example, with the early M54 cars, you had the wastegate rattle, the early piezo injectors would go bad, coil packs and things like that. You have to maintain these cars much more rigorously than anything else. Now, as you get into the much more modern BMW engines like the B58, the S55, and especially the S58, there isn't really a big, large issue with these engines. Yeah, on the S55, you have the crank hub, which was blown out of proportion by companies wanting to sell parts. This happens in every industry. In the LS community, it happens in the Mopar community, and now you're seeing it happen in the BMW community as well. People want to sell parts, people blow things out of proportion. Perfectly understandable. But especially in the B58, the B58, in my opinion, is probably one of the engines that proves to be like the best of both worlds, where you still have that simplistic technology that even Toyota used this engine in the Supra, and Toyota is very big on reliability. So if they're willing to use it, obviously it's going to be a very, very good engine. And then as you get into the newer things like the S55, the S58, these engines are just much newer, where you don't really have those long-term reliability problems just yet. But I mean, time will tell. In my opinion, the BMWs, these aren't swap engines. These are engines built for that specific car and that specific chassis.
Yeah.
So I know you're gonna get a lot of LS guys in the comments. Hey, I'd rather have a insert Fox body with a leaking 4.8 liter LS with a Chinese turbo that makes 700 horsepower 3 times before it explodes. You're gonna have those type of people, but, I mean, it's all good. I love these engines just as much as anybody else.
Nah, those engines are ridiculous, bro. And like I was just saying, like, the reliability is obviously changed with the newer models, but bruh, I've seen it in real time, just how fast these cars are stock. If you're willing to pay, some extra money, you know what I'm saying, getting into the M series of the BMWs, bruh, you don't really have to do too much. You don't. You really don't have to do too much to make good power. They make good power stock. If you want to add a little bit of sauce to it, it's not gonna break the bank. You'll be gapping a lot of people with these, bro. So if you're in the business of buying a car and you want something that has some speed to it, definitely look into BMW. And I'm one of those type of people. Yes, I'm a Mercedes guy, but I respect just well-built cars and engines. Doesn't matter what the brand is. And I'm not one of those type of people, oh yes, F BMW. I don't give a fuck about that. That, to me, that's kind of childish shit. At the end of the day, if you got a nice, well-built up engine or a nice vehicle in regards, whether you tune it or not, I'm always show love, because at the end of the day, that's something you paid some money for. It looks nice, look clean, got some speed to it. I don't be tripping. It is what it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just one of those type of things where I can appreciate BMWs and just the amount of power that they putting out. Hell, one of my homies trying to get a M5 competition, and I hope he gets it. So I can say personally, I know someone with an M5 competition. Not the new one, even though the new one's making some crazy horsepower. It's just ridiculously heavy. But he's trying to get him one, so I'm rooting for him to get one. That's just the type of person I am. And he owns a Mercedes too. So, but comment down below, let me know. I want to know who out there owns a BMW that watches my channel or subscribe to me. Let me know which one of you guys down there, I want what, you know, just in general, down in the comments below, own a BMW, which model you own, and what's your favorite BMW of all time. It doesn't even have to be anything crazy, you know, super fast. Just in general, what's your favorite BMW of all time? But I appreciate all the love, support. Road to 20K, and I'll see y'all next one, man. Peace.